What's up, y'all? Greetings and salutations. Hopefully, all is well with you. Used to have that thing in the background so I could double check myself, see what's going on, but it happens. But look, y'all. Look, I would have the music going, but we had our goal, and I don't want to get no trouble. But appreciate to those who did help support. One in particular, Dr. Mom, but anybody else who's wanting to support. We are up there for our days of giving. So if you haven't already done so, I believe I saw last I checked it was like 38,000 for the university. We hit our goal. We're over 200, so we doubled the goal thanks to some of y'all. So if you want to continue to get to the call, so definitely do so. But look, we had good people here always. Somebody who's running for president, she is here, Miss Arista Polk. Let y'all know it's about to be some fun times. It's always gonna be some fun because you already know what's up and what it's always gonna be. It's about to be Fangs Up.
Yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Now let's get it started. Are you kidding me? Unreal!
While our HBCUs are mostly known for academic rigor, community, they also know how to turn up.
Does he have it? Yes, he does! And that might be the knockout punch.
All right, greetings and salutations. Look, hopefully y'all are doing well. And it is election season on the highest of Seven Hills, and normally we try to stay about the business of athletics, but the past couple weeks kind of got ourselves a little politically involved, partially because I ain't know everybody else running. I knew two people, and I was like, I know them, but I'm the type of person I don't like to just vote for you because I know you. Like I like to vote for the best candidate. Like I don't know, I'm not crazy about nepotism. Nepotism has its place, but at the same point, sometimes you just got to put the best person forward. So, look, we're gonna see. This is our third presidential candidate, and we're gonna see if y'all can push Miss Polk forward. So let's see. Add her to the stage. Look, here we go, Rattlers. Miss Arista Polk. Look. I like the background she got too, man. It looked like home. How are you doing there, Miss Polk? Got you. There we go.
Hey Keith, how are you?
I am well. I am well. It is good to see you. Look, if y'all don't know, Miss Polk is running for NAA President. She is wanting to represent you, me, and every member of the FAMU league. Look, that was organic. We ain't even like set that up like that. That was right there. And look, her team even took they they blessed me because they made this. Look, she is professional, highly credentials. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what we can talk about. Yeah, I know me. I don't never get nobody in no trouble. Except for me, I'll get myself in trouble. You look, I don't never care about me. But I love good trouble, as some will point out. But Ms. Polk, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit? Tell us about your background.
All right. So, as far as my personal background, I'm originally from Maryland, well, born and raised. My parents, I'm a second generation Rattler. Both of my parents attended FAMU. My dad is Dr. Artie L. Polk from Apalachicola, Florida. And my mom is Dr. Retha Phillips Polk from Waycross, Georgia. So we have two small town Rattlers came to FAMU. They met there. My dad was involved in SGA, a math major. He went over the Beta Nu chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha. And my mom was a pharmacy major. She was all about studying and being inside the chemistry lab. And she ended up going over the Beta Alpha chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I have aunts and uncles that went to FAMU, cousins, all before me and even some after, and including right now on campus, have some relatives. So definitely a FAMU family. One of my aunts, if you were there in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you may know, or even the early 90s, Dr. Lucille P. Saylor from the Counseling Center. And she was the advisor for the Beta Alpha chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We are, I would say about 7 out of 9 of us are in D9 organizations in my family, and a former Marching 100 member also in the family. So we have a little bit of everybody who went to FAMU from my family. And, you know, I was there in the 90s with Dr. Fred Humphreys. So I'm a Humphreys era baby rattler. And I majored in biology. I was up there in Jones Hall, was a Bynard scholar, and one of the first class of presidential ambassadors under Dr. Humphreys. And that program is still going today. So that's a little bit about my personal background with FAMU and where I'm from.
Okay. Hey, look, you know, looks like I get to get that in the notes there. Humphreys era. You know, you put that ERA just for, you know, it means a little something different.
Yes.
If you ain't go to FAMU in a certain time of life, it lands different. But you mentioned you're from Maryland. It's funny, my wife's actually from Maryland. She was born in Maryland.
Oh.
But you know, she is actually grew up in Polk County. So
Yes.
you know, funny how things just lined up, you know. And then my kin people on my mom's side are from Apalachicola. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah.
Might be cousins.
Absolutely. Well, probably look very small.
It is. We'll talk a little bit after.
Definitely. So you mentioned, and you kind of hinted at it, but I still got to ask the question. You know, coming from Maryland, FAMU legacy, but you still had to get over a few colleges. Why did you choose to attend the greatest university on this side of heaven, in my personal opinion?
In my personal opinion as well. So that's interesting. Yes, I did have that family background. As a matter of fact, in 1987, my parents took us down to campus for the centennial celebration. And so my aunt lived right off of campus. So it was just amazing to hear, you know, all the, you know, the camaraderie going on. It was, you know, exciting time for everyone. But fast forward to high school, you know, I went to a school here in Maryland. I was like in a science and technology program. And so I didn't see a whole lot of us. So one thing I knew that I was going to go to an HBCU, and I also knew that I wanted to go away. I love home. I love my parents, but I felt like I wanted that sense of independence. And so I honestly applied to 2 schools. I only applied to those schools because those are the only 2 schools I was interested in going in. I won't mention the other school, just, you know, not to, you know, hate on anybody else. I love all my HBCUs, but just those 2. But I chose FAMU because I was in a summer program, Bynard, any Bynard scholars out there? Hey. So I was in that program in high school and then also the summer before college. So I really had a chance to meet a lot of the professors on campus and already started my village at FAMU with the students. And I had just never seen such a diversity of people from all across the country, even though we were all, you know, descendants, you know, African descendants. It was just that diversity, that love, that kind of community that I had not experienced before. And then, of course, FAMU gave me more money than that other school. And the other school cost more. So those things put together, because I was really, you know, undecided until the very last minute. But I think it was that Bynard program that really won me over. And the fact that I had cousins on campus. And so, you know, we really, you know, turned up together on campus. So it was really a good time. So.
Okay. And that's always an interesting question. Everybody's why is different. You know, some folks is money, some folks is location, some folks you ain't got a choice. It's okay. But I always like to ask that question. And you know, you are the 3rd, maybe 4th Humphreys era rattler. And I asked the other Humphrey era rattlers kind of this question, but when you go back and you look at that era, and for those, like I said, who grew up in it, it's kind of one of those IYK situations. What made the Humphreys era unique and special for you?
It put us on a national stage. Well, let me go back a little bit. So we mentioned Apalachicola, right? So we all know Dr. Humphreys is from Apalachicola, Florida. I had met him obviously beforehand. So my uncle and Dr. Humphreys were valedictorian and salutatorian in high school. And so my dad is younger to Dr. Humphreys, but he knew him very closely. Dr. Humphreys had been up to Maryland plenty of times recruiting. And so I had met him on a personal level. So Dr. Humphreys is, obviously a special person, and he remembers his students. I still don't know how he did it, but he could tell you 20 years later what your major was, right, when you were at school. But it was just just being on a campus where the world knew who we were. And so that made an absolute great difference. And I mentioned earlier about being a presidential ambassador under Dr. Humphreys. He had the foresight to have that program to make sure, that students were able to tell the story and represent the university well. So those are the things that, attracted me and make me think about my days on campus during the Humphreys era. So yeah, that's what makes it special for me. Just having known him, just witnessing a great leader for our university and making sure we were on the map.
Okay. Sorry for the movements to get the gears going with that presidential ambassador program. Could you just really speak about that experience? What it was like, for some of us, we didn't quite get that, but at the same point, it's really cool to kind of hear that piece because that's part of your FAMU story. It's unique, and it reaches a group of us. And just could you speak to what that was, and you're saying still in existence, what it is?
It is. So FAMU presidential ambassadors basically a lot of times would travel, maybe not distance, but I think they do more traveling now. In our first year, we were mostly sort of local, but anytime we had dignitaries to come onto campus, we would be the ones greeting them. I never forget going for the first time to the president's house. We got up, dressed up in our suits, and they had uniforms for us. That was just a great time to be able to be, the student face, in addition to student government and other organizations, to be the student face to the campus, to be able to see that at such a young age, see the interactions with corporate representatives visiting or others who were interested in supporting the university. It really gave me a great exposure as a presidential ambassador. So I'm always fond of those experiences. The last time I went down to, I think it was the Florida Classic, the presidential ambassadors were there, representing. And so, of course, I connected with them and let them know. I was like, hey, I was, in the first class, not to tell my age to y'all, but, just to connect with them. It was just, it's just wonderful.
Okay. I like that. I like this because, again, as I told y'all, part of the way this started was because, like I said, I want to see the face behind, the flyers. What are y'all's personalities like? And kind of mentioning that, can you loosely talk about the fields you work in?
Yes, sure. Now, after I graduated from FAMU, I went on to the George Washington University and earned my master's degree in biostatistics. So as a statistician, I can really work in a number of different fields. I do work for our federal government. God pray for us. But basically, as a statistician, I analyze data for a living, and I manage programs and manage people. So statisticians get information, mostly numerical data, but it could be any kind of information. Basically, take big data, massage it, analyze it, and then produce results that our senior leaders can use to make decisions. That's pretty much what it is. That's what I do. That's what we do. And that translates into a lot of areas of life. It could translate to other, to just about any fields, whether it's finances or healthcare, just anything, everyone's looking for a way to make sense of the data that they have, right? And use it to make great decisions. So we talk a lot about data-driven decisions. That's what we do. And so that translates even to any organization that you're a part of. So if you're leading, for instance, a National Alumni Association, we need to know, kind of what's going on, collect the data, massage it, spit it out. And, it tells us, how we need to go forward from here. So that's my background. That's what I do. I love science. I love numbers. I love data.
Okay. And yeah, Miss Polk is being humble. Like she's trying not to like brag too hard, but she has a very strong like math background. Like I ain't gonna lie, I do my research on folk. And so before she came on, because I don't like to be asking questions and folks be like, bruh, you see, like she got the NAA pin on, like obviously, like, well, I ain't even know, I was just asking questions. I don't like that. I like to be informed. I'm a bit of a nerd myself. So she's being a humble brag. And there's a reason I structured a question like that for a reason, because I was like, hey, these are my questions, but I see something there. I want to make sure I
Right.
tiptoe. And in that, see that NAA pin, and you're up there in the DMV area, if I'm correct.
Correct.
What do you currently do with the National Alumni Association?
All right. So currently, I am the FAMU NAA national first vice president, and I also have served in this organization for over 20 years. And I've been a member of the Washington, D.C. Metro chapter this entire time. I am a life member of the National Alumni Association. So if you don't mind, I can tell you how I got started, which I think is it's a funny story to me. So hopefully I can share this with your viewers.
Yes, ma'am.
So 20 something years ago, I was my parents are FAMU alumni, so I knew all about the FAMU DC chapter cookout, over the summers. And a friend of mine was the chair of that committee. And so he said, hey, can you help me, with the cookout committee? I was not a member of the National Alumni Association at that time. And so my friend wanted my help. So I just volunteered. I did my little part, whatever I was asked to do, set up a table or whatever. And so then I started going to the meetings. And the then president saw me, saw this young lady coming to the meeting. And she said, are you a member of the National Alumni Association? And I said, no. How do I become a member? And so at that time, the national dues, I think, were $35 and chapter dues were $40. And she was like, oh, you pay $75 per year to become a member. And I thought about it, I was like, oh, okay. Well, no, thank you. No, thank you. And she just kind of looked at me like, I really did. I honestly did. I was like, no, I mean, that just wasn't, I wasn't thinking that was my priority at that time, but I did help my friend out on that committee. So I was already doing the work, but then I kept coming to meetings and eventually I did end up paying my dues. I felt like, I the more meetings I attended, the more I understood what was going on and what the purpose was. And so I finally became a member. Then, you know how we do. We see somebody coming, they're new blood into an organization. One meeting I missed, I came back at the next meeting and they said, Artisha, at our last meeting, we elected you as our recording secretary. Seriously. And the president literally said, here's your pen. Do you need some paper? We need you to take notes. So I thought about it for like a half second. And I said, you know what? Okay, this is what they want me to do. This is what they need. So I went in. So 7 offices later. So I've been, office at my chapter level, region. I've been Northeast region vice president. I've held 3 offices at the national level, and I'm here today. So as your first vice president, the person who stands in the absence of the president if needed, serving as a member of the convention committee and any other things that the president or the administration would have me to do. So I will say I've tackled some complex issues over the years. Various presidents have asked me to take on certain things like getting our bylaws, straight, getting some old policies that haven't been looked at in over a decade, getting those things straight, settling this issue with, making sure that, a chapter gets reinstated, just different things. So I've contributed in various ways in this position and other positions in the National Alumni Association.
Okay. And again, like I told y'all, some of the reason, you're like, hey, you're running for president. Like, what else have they done? Because folks are like, somebody asked me like, hey, you want to run for this in the NAA? I'm like, nah, bro, I'm good.
I know that's okay.
I'm okay with being a little Indian. I don't need to be a chief. um, but in mentioning, and we've had some of our others who are running for first VP come on.
Hmm.
You kind of shed a little light on that, but
Okay.
could you expound upon that a little bit more? Like talk about what it's been like being the first VP, especially and it's you're running against the current president. So that's an interesting dynamic. But what has it been like being in that supporting role for the president, especially during these times? FAMU's been in a place of transition almost constantly. But what has it been like being that first VP during this era?
So, in any era that I'm serving any administration, it's always, great to serve an organization, be in that supportive role. And so let me just say one thing. I'm not running against anybody. I am running for president of the FAMU National Alumni Association. So we just want to make that, sort of distinction here. So, it's always good. It's always good to serve in the National Alumni Association, do whatever part is interesting. I think the most interesting part of the job is interacting, with our alumni, helping people that need assistance. We had a move to standardize our regional reports. Our regional vice presidents had, different ways of reporting, but this administration wanted to make sure that we report in such a way that we're, being able to be accountable as an organization, making sure we're doing things, in compliance. And so one of the other officers and I worked together to make sure that we had that put together. We have like a whole spreadsheet of what they're going to list and how they're going to reporting on membership increasing and compliance for chapters, whether or not they've, filed their IRS forms, different things like that. And so that's the kind of work that I've been doing in this particular role. And so, at this point, I'm ready to go to the next step.
I love that, and again, that's the beauty of this. Because I'll be honest with y'all, you'd asked me this stuff like 6 months ago, and I ain't gonna hold you. I've been helping the NAA for like about a year. I couldn't tell you what a lot of these positions was, what they did, none of it. So a lot of this is a fun learning process, even for myself. And you mentioned you have a background in data, analytics,
Yeah.
numbers. Could you now kind of transition from
Okay.
that regional VP space to speaking of how you're going to be able to use your professional expertise to be able to fill that role as the next president of the FAMU National Alumni Association?
Okay. All right. So now having that sort of background, I know, I'm accustomed to making decisions based on information, in front of us and correct interpretation of whatever data that we have, right? And so the data this time will look probably a lot different from what I look at work. This time the data would be, how are our chapters doing? How is their membership, increase or decrease, and compared to the numbers of people, that they have in their particular city, how can we look at it at a granular level and at a high level at the same time to make sure that we're growing as an organization. And just managing, people and managing programs and what I do for a living, do the same thing as your national president. And so I did do that as regional vice president, took care of, the Northeast region. We had a lot of growth. We had some significant growth. We put a lot of things into place, such as we started our website for the first time, our online store. We held, conversations with the then athletic director on a virtual program. We established our strategic planning committee. And so all those things are still going. And even actually we started things with our standardized reporting as regional vice president. So moving on to the national level, we have a lot more to look at, right? And having done so many of the roles over the years, I have a very deep understanding of how our organization works and how it should work. And, having worked with policies, procedures, communications, and different things, even, recording our notes and minutes of our organization over the years, having been head of scholarship committee as the Northeast region first vice president, different things. So I understand how the things work, and I've also have a lot of relationships with various chapter officers, past, present, and then upcoming leaders of our chapter. And so I think that that would help us. A lot of people already, they come to me, they trust my leadership, and they're really excited. Actually, people have come up to me for quite a few years now, really excited and then really wanting to support my candidacy for president. So I'm looking forward to doing some of the things and talking to you about that as well.
Yes, ma'am. And you've mentioned that Northeastern region, and could you expound upon that? Just kind of tell, because I got a follow-up question. But I'm in the Florida region. I know every place that's in the Florida region. I mean, it's Florida. But for those of us that are geographically challenged, as far as what the regions look like, because organization, your regions, your provinces, they look different.
Yes.
What does the Northeast region, what areas does it entail?
That's a great question. So all states recover from Maine to Virginia on the eastern side, including West Virginia. Yes. And so, we have 6 regions in the National Alumni Association. 5 are geographical regions, and then we have the national, international region. So Northeast region, Maine to Virginia. We have the Southern region. I don't want to try to name everybody's states, but, just think, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, and other states. Of course, there's the Florida region. You have your Midwest, which would include Ohio, Illinois, Kentucky, and other states such as Iowa, different things. And then we have the far west. That's the largest land-wise. We have probably fewer rattlers between Texas, California, and other states, Nevada, and other states out west. So, and then there's the national and international region where the chapters are not bound by any particular geographic area. They may have certain interests, such as being a fraternity, a sorority, a school or college from a university, the alumni, or even sports. We even have a women's basketball, FAMU football, and a lot of other different chapters such as that. So with the Northeast region, that's mainly Virginia, and we have 9 chapters, 3 of which I was regional VP when we chartered some new chapters in our region. So that would be Tidewater, Virginia, Long Island Rattlers, and the Greater Baltimore chapter.
Okay. And look, I'm a nerd and told y'all. Those who watch the show, y'all know Keith's a nerd. So, you're not surprised. But in the Northeast region, and especially with you listen to those areas, you all have some events that are like, to me, they're uncommon. So I won't say they're uncommon, but you don't see them happen many other places outside of Florida. I know normally Connecticut, I believe you have like a wine event up there in that area, if I remember correctly. And then y'all also have like a Be Out Day up there in the DMV area. So it's a very active area. And it looks, in social media wise, it's a very active region, just largely. A lot of times, like I said, especially the springtime, they outside.
Yes,
So could you speak about really growing that chapter and that region, I'm sorry, as far as, event wise and, just making it an attractive region for those that come to that area or may want to be in that area?
Well, I think you said it. It's already an attractive region. The largest chapter is the Washington, D.C. Metro chapter. And you also see, other chapters doing activities. I believe Northern Virginia just had a new spring type activity. And we really do collaborate with one another. We attend each other's chapter events. I'll even go up to the Philadelphia chapter scholarship event pretty much every year. And they let me say a few little things on program when I do come. New York has a lot of things within the city, on Long Island, events where they honor their alumni. We have a great chapter in Massachusetts as well. There aren't as many rattlers up in that area, but what they do it well. They do the scholarships, and they make sure that they're doing their fridge. And I don't want to talk, acronyms without explaining what that is. Those of us who were officers of the National Alumni Association, you would hear us talk about fridge, FRIG, which is our mission to fundraise, recruit students, recruit alumni, promote image building and government relations. So a lot of great chapters in the Northeast region, a lot of great energy. We can always grow more. We're always looking to do that. And I think one of the ways that we continue to grow as an organization is to make sure people know where we are. Like you said, they're already on social media. So people see events, sort of happening, and they come out and say, hey, let me, come out and join. And, a lot of times we come out to have a good time, but we want you to also come and, pay your dues, pay your dues to the National Alumni Association, because we're really here to support FAMU, support our students in all of our programs. So I think one of the best ways to get our members to come out, and I always talk about the late Jim Jones, those who were in the Northeast region, if you've been around for more than, 5 or 10 years, you know exactly who Jim Jones is. He used to always say, each one, reach one. And that is a person, we need another person like him in our National Alumni Association, because he will call you on the phone. If it was a few days after, your dues were due and he didn't see your name coming through as the membership chair of our chapter, he will call you. So we do need some more of those people to reach out to those who we know. People will come into our organization because their friend asked them, or if they will come in because they know that someone has something specific for them to do. And so that's one of the things I did as Northeast Region Vice President. We grew our committees and the work that we were doing, because I asked them first, what can you handle? And then going from there, bring them in to help out in any way that they could. And so you don't have to come in and, chair a committee or be a part of a committee that's going to meet every single month. If you can come in and do one thing, we want you to come in and do that. And so that will get us to grow.
Okay. And, we're going someplace. And little baby, I got your question. I put it on my list. So y'all will notice sometimes I do this. I go to screen number 2. I do notes. I'm a bullet guy, so I don't type everything out, but I have to keep it focused. But in mentioning that, and part of the reason to kind of set you up, you've grown a region, you've grown a chapter. I did that out of order. I should have said a chapter. Now you've grown a region. Now, as you aspire to become our next National Alumni Association president, how do you plan to grow the National Alumni Association?
Okay, great. Thank you. So when we're growing our National Alumni Association, we need to think about, what's important to the members. We need to reach out to them. I talked a lot about connecting with our alumni. Our national leaders need to make sure we're purposely doing that. We need to embrace, open communication and regular communication with our chapter officers, chapter members, committee chairs. Not to say that, we're still work within our structure of our organization, right? We have our regional leaders, we have our chapter leaders, but sometimes it just takes that informal, a few times a year. Hey, let me hear what's going on, in your chapters. What do you need help with? What is it what type of national program do we need to lay out to make sure that you all are doing okay? And so one of those things would be to have a national NAA education year round, like have a dean of NAA education, right? Especially when we have a lot of new chapter officers that get in and they're not necessarily certain what they need, to be able to be a successful chapter. So they have a lot of questions. We need one place, one resource for them to be able to go to. Also, so one of the things that's big high on my list is strengthening our young alumni involvement. And the reason being is because that's the group that we're largely missing. We have a lot of committed rattlers who, graduated in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. But sometimes we don't get our young alumni as they come out of FAMU. So one of the things we can do is create a perpetual presence on campus. I know we have a Student National Alumni Association. We have SGA who are involved, usually involved with the National Alumni Association, but it should be something that every student on campus is aware of and involved in somehow, whether we bring them in to the NAA to do small projects, give them community service hours, or if we have the funding, could possibly give them small stipends. Just make sure that they're, involved and know the benefit of being in the National Alumni Association. So form that relationship throughout their college career. And so then when you get to, graduation, you hear this transcendent ceremony, you know what it is they're talking about. And I could say that I don't remember that when I graduated. I'm sure they had that, but I couldn't tell you. So involving our young alumni, making sure they have a voice, or even having a liaison group on our executive board. That's another thing that we can do to help our young alumni become involved. Also, I think we need to increase our global alumni engagement. So FAMU is a global university. Alumni are spread out, internationally. And so we do have a national and international region, and national and international region. So let's grow that international part. Let's be intentional about getting 3 or more international chapters established within these next 3 years. And then finally, we want to make sure that we have benefits for our members that the members want, or the people or prospective members want, right? I believe in talking to people like, hey, what do we want to do as an organization? What type of benefits, what draw you in? And we work with our corporate partners, to help make some of those things happen. So that, that's my thing, engaging with people, making sure they feel heard and included and valued, just making sure that all of our chapters are, welcoming new members. And I know, sometimes we do things for some time, and we need to be open to new ideas, and especially while young rattlers come in, they have different ideas. Want to make sure we put that to use. At the same time, those who are seasoned and experienced rattlers in our program also make sure our young rattlers understand and know, make sure we're staying on target with our mission, and make sure they understand the organization, the structure of our organization. So I think that kind of exchange between seasoned and new would help.
Okay, I like that. And I got a question for little baby. Little baby, she wants to know, and I love the use of the word purview. I love big words. I'm sorry, but what would you look to implement, or discontinue to progress the National Alumni Association?
Okay. All right. So I think a lot we should do to progress us, to make sure that we're a forward-thinking alumni association. One of my platform points is to modernize and strengthen our operations. We've made some steps over the years, but I'm a big thinker, right? Like a high level thinker. I like strategic plans and long-term plans, making sure that we are a solid organization. So that when it comes to strategic plans with our business, with our operations and technology tools, let's plan and review those tools regularly, so that we don't fall into a place where we're in dire straits that we need to, upgrade this or upgrade that. So I think having that particular plan, for our technology, and also having we have persons right now who are ready to offer their expertise and user experience. So I hear a lot about user experience with our FAMU NAA, website, and paying your dues and getting money back, making sure that, we have the information on our site, but people say, oh, I can't find the information. So that's what user experience is. And I'm really excited and looking forward to those rattlers who have expertise in that area to help us to grow as a National Alumni Association.
Okay. All right. I like that. And you kind of, you're going towards that 5 points plan a little bit. But before we get to your 5 points, could you talk about, your idea for growing corporate partnership? We know, we've just seen some of the things that are happening, and
Oh, yes.
don't want you to get critical about that. But how do we grow corporate sponsorship to offset some of those losses that we are seeing happen for Mother FAMU?
Yes. And you're absolutely right. We are seeing that now, but it should not be a surprise. They told us months ago that this was coming, and now it's here. And I am so disheartened to have heard about I think it was, correct me if I get my numbers correct, about $16.4 million NIH grant for our pharmacy college and research program that we lost because, of this new environment that we're in. That's unacceptable. And so what we need to do, and yes, I am going into my 5-point plan because all of these things that are important to FAMU NAA, we're looking to address in this next administration. So yes, we do want to forge we do have corporate sponsors. We want to make sure we have long-term, high-impact sponsorships with corporations that aligns with our values. And so, yes, we are going to need to dig a little bit deeper because there are, several companies that are, taking away their DEI programs. They're no longer committed to that. But I'm certain that there are some companies that are still committed, and we can do a little more to leverage our alumni who are in executive positions and various Fortune 500 companies, and we have rattlers with businesses. How about that? How about let's have a Rattler Business Consortium, making sure that, we have that network working together so that they would benefit themselves, but also that our FAMU programs would benefit. So that's what we need to do. And then other revenue streams, like you said, you're going to ask me about my 5-point plan, but all of this is getting into that. So that's what we need to do. We need to have that long-term plan, reach out to more of our networks to be able to bring in those corporate partnerships even more.
Look, I'm not fooling her at all. So I'm about to walk her into this 5-point plan. But before I walk you into that, I want you to give us your platform. Like, what are you? We all know, as folks like to say, they're standing on business. But could you let us know what's your platform? And then, of course, I'm gonna follow up, and I'm gonna have my graphic right because I told you we had a field trip today, so I missed this part, and I really want this because it looks nice. I ain't gonna lie. Look, I'm one of them. Like, oh look, that thing look kind of fly. I want to make sure I get her up here with her 5-point plan. But could you tell us what your platform is so that those that haven't decided yet can come out here and make the vote?
All right. So they're kind of one and the same. So I can break it down. We can talk about the platform in general. And then when you ask about the 5-point plan, we can go a little bit deeper. But the platform is based on elevating the FAMU NAA brand. And so we want to ignite a bold rebranding initiative that amplifies our visibility and inclusivity and strengthening our alumni engagement. So a lot of times when people think about branding, they're thinking about, logos and colors, and that's part of it. But mostly branding is about what people see and think of when they think about the National Alumni Association. So you want that to be as positive as possible. Now, it's not to say we're going to please everyone, right? Like, it's not going to happen, but we do need to make an effort and make sure that our customer service and other things about us, the culture of the Alumni Association is such that people want to come in. Modernizing and strengthening our NAA operations. Like we talked about some of these things before, but we need to better streamline our processes and enhance financial oversight such that we're making sure that the monies that we're taking in, we're not, spending, too much more than that, right? We want to make sure that those finances are balanced at the end of the day. Protecting FAMU's legacy and future. We want to mobilize all of our alumni to advocate for the policies that safeguard our university and influence key leadership positions and reinforcing a strong governmental relations and community relations. And that all of that's important for the success of FAMU. Raising transformational capital, driving record-breaking fundraising through corporate partnerships, and also better leveraging our notable alumni, rattlers, to help drive some of these fundraisers. And finally, engaging, connecting, and empowering our alumni. So we want a thriving network. We want to offer more valuable benefits to our members, strengthening our ties. And so those things will help us to encourage lifelong involvement in the National Alumni Association.
Okay. All right. And a little feedback from the website needs an update.
Okay.
I don't disagree. But I love that. And all right, now I gotta set up. I need that 5 points plan. I had to make sure the graphic was right. I promise y'all. I went to her I went to her Instagram. I said, wait, I saw it earlier. I downloaded the picture. I like the one she sent. Well, I like the other one better because this one had a little more color. And so, I don't always do stuff right. But
you're good.
I know how to get what I want.
5-point plan up there.
But give me your 5-point plan to move the FAMU NAA forward.
All right. 5-point plan, elevate the FAMU NAA brand. Just to talk a little bit more about that, we mentioned a little bit earlier about transforming our digital presence, overhauling, our site so that it has seamless navigation. Again, we talked about that user experience. We want them to have, we want them to look at our site and say, hey, yeah, this is our FAMU NAA website. And then we could also do things like leverage, marketing through text messaging, making sure we're reaching out to our alumni as much as possible, giving them information. We talked earlier about creating a perpetual presence on campus. That's all about our image as well, making sure we're connecting with the entire student body and getting them involved and connected with the National Alumni Association. Also with our students, when they graduate, we can implement a Rattler Ready program to complement FAMU's Rattler Connection initiative, which would be an alumni-driven transition program from student to alumna or alumnus. And so by modernizing our brand and creating a welcoming, a high engagement experience, we are going to foster deeper alumni connections. The next one is modernizing and strengthening our operations. This would drive stronger alumni engagement because people want to see, people want you to stand on business. They want you to get the business done, get it done right. And believe it or not, we are interested in partying. Rattlers, we party, but we also want to take care of business. We want to do so efficiently, and make sure that we have the information that we need. So I talked earlier about establishing an NAA education program and make sure we have year-round courses such as, how to run a chapter or NAA 101. I haven't seen, and I've heard maybe different people, I think maybe a past president talked about NAA 101. And so that stuck in my mind, but we can make sure that comes to fruition, in this next administration. Because like you said, a few months ago, you weren't sure, who did what in the National Alumni Association. But I think that's important because that'll help people to say, oh, maybe I can, fit in here in this particular area. Maybe I can contribute in this committee or contribute to that task force or something. So making sure that and then also we have programs to cultivate our future leaders in the National Alumni Association, because those of us who have been doing this for 20 years plus, eventually we do need to pass the baton along to the next person. So we talked about financial oversight, making sure that we need to implement quarterly variance reports for our finances, making sure, we have our budget. The budget is our plan. But then what are we actually doing? How are we actually spending our money? Making sure that our committee chairs and others who may need to expend funds know where we stand in real time. And coordinating more, effectively with the university. So a lot of times, chapters are asked to participate in various events. And I think that we can kind of organize and coordinate together to make sure that we have good advanced planning opportunities to welcome the university. You may have choirs coming or, certain teams, athletic teams, want to make sure that we're able to support and connect the university. And so protecting FAMU's legacy and future, making sure that we're expanding. We have a great program in Florida. We need to expand to the federal government as well, because like you just said, we just lost, over $10 million, 16 point something million dollars for our pharmacy program because funding that was taken away, the NIH grant that was taken away from our pharmacy program. So, and then having a FAMU Day on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and all the activities that surround that. Since most of our funding comes from Capitol Hill, we need to make sure that we shore up that program. And then raising transformational capital, that's always, in addition to, partnering with our corporations, we need to make sure that we leverage our Rattler businesses and also create sustained revenue funds, that will continue to pay us in perpetuity. And then finally, engaging our alumni base better, expanding globally, strengthening our young alumni involvement, and making sure that, as president, I am present in front of, all of our members, having two-way conversation, getting ideas from our members, and also hearing whatever concerns, and then trying to, in a very, just basically looking to address those things in an organized way, and, have a plan for that, and then report back to our membership. So that's the 5-point plan. We have several people who are excited about getting that done. But, you can hear me say this, but, go look at it for yourself. I have a website, www.artisha4FAMUNAA.com. And so you can get all of that there. And also you can get information, follow me on Facebook and Instagram. That's at Artisha4FAMUNAA. And we now have YouTube. So I'm pretty sure we're going to put this video up on YouTube. I appreciate, you're definitely giving me the opportunity to come to you and speak to your viewers on your show. So that's what we have. Yeah, there it is.
Look, I'm one of those. You can't tell me you got a website now. I'm gonna pull it on up. Well done too. Look, I ain't gonna lie.
Thank you. Well, I didn't do it. I'm gonna give a shout out to the team. When I tell you, when you work with great people, this is what you get.
Yes, it's very solid. The video is well done. Look, I watched the video a couple times. Again, it is Artisha4FAMUNAA.com. Well done website.
Speaking of the video, I want to also give a shout out to a Rattler, because, it's all about the Rattler connection in the community. MRI Studios in Baltimore is Rattler owned. And so I appreciate them for allowing me to, have some of their time in their studios so I could do that.
Yeah, definitely. And look, it looks nice. Look, that's why I love it. Like, oh, that's high quality right there.
Well, they all thank you. We thank you. The team thanks you.
And you kind of mentioned, in your 5 points plan, protecting FAMU's brand. And I know for a lot of us, point of concern has definitely been stability at FAMU, especially in, with everything going on.
Yes.
How will you help promote stability at FAMU?
So promoting stability at FAMU, we are, as everyone knows, we are undergoing a search for a new FAMU president. And having someone who, I would say voting for me is a vote for stability. Having been around the National Alumni, so not just been around, but, leading in the National Alumni Association, getting results, having impact, just being that continuity, with the National Alumni Association, knowing, its history and, how the organization can help our university. Stability, I think also, when things are going on at the university, in my opinion, our National Alumni Association needs to always stand ready to protect and defend FAMU. There are things that we can say and do that maybe those on campus cannot. All right. So here I can say whatever I need to say. There I know I'm thinking of some past national presidents right now. If you even think about talking about FAMU, we're out there being proactive, making sure we're telling our positive stories about our university and about our National Alumni Association. Now, the NAA does not have complete and total control over everything that's going on, right? But we do have influence. We can tell the story. We can help stabilize and making sure, that we have the positive stories out there about our university, making sure we're checking people who are not doing right by our university. Okay, so that's the part that we can do. And then when there comes a time for us to have new leadership, because that's going to happen, you're going to have leadership changing, from time to time. But when that does happen, the National Alumni Association, in my opinion, should be coordinated in such a way that we come up and say, hey, here is our, here are some people who we're recommending. We don't decide, but we're recommending. This is our short list. These are the qualities, and these people fit these qualities. And here's what we want for our university. Dr. Humphreys, when he came on as president, the National Alumni Association had a lot to, played a significant part in that. Okay.
And one of the things you're mentioning here, and again, the mouse is on the wheel running around. You mentioned succession plan. Well, it doesn't say a succession plan, but there's, in my mind, what do we do as a organization to not necessarily have a quote unquote succession plan where someone is maybe handpicked or groomed, but to still have individuals that can come into these new positions and not come in and mess up as much as they might had they been given a little guidance.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I guess I'm assuming you mean at any level. So we have new chapter officers, we have new
regional
officers,
any level.
We have new national officers. Our organization is set up, it's a democratic, process, right? Meaning every so often at the national level is every 3 years. Every 3 years, we've decided the membership will decide, who would be our next officers. And absolutely, there should be a smooth transition period, whether, regardless of, who's coming in or out. So when we love our organization, we will make sure, that happens, that we have succession planning and not handpick people, but just to make sure that we have a pipeline of enough people who know about our organization, who have learned from the NAA Dean of Education, right? Having learned those things so that we can continue. Not only did we have elections and changes of officers, unfortunately, sometimes, people, may not be able to continue in office for one reason or another. So I don't want to talk about, the worst that could happen, but we just never know. We need to be prepared always. In any, administration, to make sure that everyone, is on the same page. Everyone has, the same information so that if there is a transition, either purposely or, by circumstance, that we continue as an organization. And so since we all love FAMU, that's something that I'm sure that everyone is interested in having succession planning, having, smooth transitions, making sure that we're good FAMU.
Okay. Get you a few questions here, Colin. We're gonna get your wrap-up questions. So, let that get to rolling there. But if y'all don't know, devastating diva Delta Sigma Theta. If I got that right, am I right?
Oh, you got it right.
I've heard on the show, I believe. So, and the nukes were like number 3. But as a member of this prestigious, illustrious organization, could you maybe talk about some of that experience in Delta, just and then how you can utilize some of that experience to benefit the National Alumni Association?
Okay. So yes, I was initiated into the Beta Alpha chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Spring '95. Shout out to my line sisters of E45. Um, and I continue to be involved in my sorority, in my alumni chapter here, the Fort Washington alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta. And so what I learned in my sister, basically is sisterhood. We need to look out for one another. Tomorrow, speaking of Delta, tomorrow is our 30th anniversary. And we are going to have a great time when we go on our line trip. It's just a beautiful thing to be able to have fun, relax. And I'm not planning anything. I'm just going to show up and go wherever they tell us that we're going to go. Right. And so, but it's a beautiful thing to be able to pick up the phone, call your line sister at any time, have fun sitting out on the beach and just tripping, And so I think that we need to take that sort of sisterhood and brotherhood and incorporate that into the National Alumni Association. We all, at one point, we were on campus on the highest of Seven Hills, studying together, partying together. I remember going to, a couple places, having fun, but I was always in that 7 a.m. class that I had. There was always, Jones Hall always had a 7 a.m. class, 7 or 8 a.m. So I couldn't get around that. But just the love that we have for one another, as Rattlers, we need to make sure that we remember that, right? We're going to have times that we're not going to agree on things, but what we really need to do is make sure we're taking care of ourselves, because we have so many things going on outside of the FAMU world. We don't need to bring that in to the family, right? We can disagree. We don't have to be best friends, but let's take care of each other. Let's not, throw each other, under the bus, in public, that kind of thing. We don't need that. What we need is to take care of one another. We need to check on each other. And, if you have something that you need to say to somebody, tell that person. That's what I would say.
All right. So in the DMV area, legendary restaurant, Ben's Chili Bowl is worth a visit.
Yes. I'm sorry. What was you said? Ben's Chili Bowl. What was the last thing?
Yes. Is it worth a visit? Is it worth a visit?
You have to go. So I went there again recently. We had Senator Raphael Warnock came to the National Cathedral, and it was the HBCU Sunday. And so several of us went out there. And so like I told you, my dad is a Rattler. So afterwards, he had to go someplace else. And I was like, hey, you might want to get something to eat before you, go to your next place. And I was like, you know what? Let's go to Ben's Chili Bowl. And so they've actually expanded. It used to be a tiny, tiny little space to go in, but now they opened up like a room in the back. So it's definitely an experience, and you go there, you see on the wall, President Obama's been there, just about any star that you can think of. And so it's a staple in DC. I would definitely recommend going. There's Ben's Chili Bowl, and then there's Ben's next door. It's just the experience and being that historical business that's been there for decades. And during the riots in the 1960s, Ben's Chili Bowl was the only business that was not burned down, in that particular area. So U Street Corridor, historic area in DC. There are so many different neighborhoods in Washington, DC. Come on up here, visit us. And yeah.
Okay. In that same vein, every city's got their hole in the wall spot. If you went to FAMU, the power of Olean's. Either it was great or it put you to sleep. And it was still good, but you were no good for the rest of the day. What is your hole in the wall restaurant that you just, you might be gatekeeping, you might not be gatekeeping, but what's your hole in the wall restaurant that's your go-to spot?
There's so many different places. I think they changed kind of over the years. I want to try to date myself. But, Tallahassee has so many different places. I don't know if I can pick one particular one, but I'm assuming you're talking about Tallahassee. Anytime I go.
Anywhere. No, anywhere. Oh, yeah. Look, that's it. I told you. I always got to catch y'all off guard with one.
Yes, this is an off guard. Oh my god. Mm, I think you got me on that one. I mean, yeah, but definitely Ben's Chili Bowl is definitely a hole in the wall. I'm trying to think. Um, that's definitely one. I can't think right now.
So if you come to
But
Orlando,
any place that has
I
good
got a couple
food,
for you.
I'm there. I'm there.
Got you. My spot is it's a Jamaican restaurant. I did not really, of course, I'm from Tallahassee, so I did not
Okay.
really know I liked Jamaican food until I moved down here. It's a
Okay.
spot called Miller's Jamaican Cuisine. I
Mm,
love the jerk chicken, and they make like this special ginger drink when you
yes.
don't feel well. It's the bee's knees.
Good for you. And I
Yeah.
actually make ginger tea, out of ginger root. So that's supposed to reduce your inflammation. There's a lot of things people in the Eastern culture, they, do that. I went to work and I told one of my colleagues that, I was drinking ginger tea and his face lit up like, oh, he was like, that's what we drink. And I'm like, yeah, it's definitely very helpful. So that ginger, that's what did it.
Okay. So before we get up out of here, because we both. I got another field trip tomorrow.
Oh,
So I gotta get up like 5 in the morning, and we're going to SeaWorld all day with the kids. But the kids were like, "Dan Hadley, you coming?" I'm like, the band director's like, "Bro, I got you." They swear we don't like each other because he went to cook with them. We like the best of friends. But what was your best experience as a member? I'm gonna ask you twice. One's gonna
okay.
be for Delta, one's gonna be for FAMU. So, what was your best experience as a member of Delta Sigma Theta so far? 30 years of memories. Look, I'm sure y'all got some type of award, something that y'all got to celebrate 30 years.
I mean, that's it. These are the hard questions. Best experience. I mean, there's so many. It's just, I'm just glad. I'm just glad that they selected me. Well, honestly, I mean, um, there are a lot of great experiences over the years. Just every time, I meet, sorors going into the centennial. Let me just talk about two different things. So I was there for our centennial here in Washington, D.C., 2013. That was just a great time. We, participated in the centennial dance, liturgical dance ministry, and I got a chance to participate in that way. So I grew up dancing. We didn't talk about too much about my childhood, but I grew up taking ballet, and so I had a chance to get back into doing that, getting, moving, and just sort of, bonding with the sisters in that particular group, and then of course going over. Right. I would never forget that. I would never forget my going over. And I broke down in tears of joy after having crossed. And, I remember the details of that day to this day. FAMU experiences. I mean, you can't really pick one. For everything from going to, I'm an avid football fan, right? I love football. That's my favorite sport. So I was pretty much at every game that was on campus. I didn't do a whole lot of traveling when I was a student. So that's one thing maybe I wish I had done a little more of. But on campus, I was at every game. I did go to some of the basketball games. I like basketball too, but I went to some of those games. I visit every time we had. I love convocation, by the way. I guess that's part of the nerd in me too. There was something about convocation that just gave me that sense of pride and joy in hearing great speakers come to our university, and I still love convocation. It's one of my favorite things when I go back to homecoming. I went to pretty much all the plays on campus, and just being a part of the community, dancing on campus as well, having experiences and my African-American class with Dr. Denard, and, being in that class, as what was I? I think I was a junior. It just really made me feel like a grown-up. They talked about everything in our course. We won't get into that on this show, but it just made, made me feel like, wow, this is a great college experience. And then just the friends who I've met. And the fact that even if I hadn't seen someone in a long time, if I can still pick up the phone or see them in person, and it's like we never lost touch. So I would say the memories, the friendships, the bonds, and just the love of the family.
Okay. Got a question for a little baby. Look, did you ever hit the flight? Yes or no? You ain't got to tell no stories. You ain't got to say no name.
Okay, I'll just yes, no stories.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Hey, look, I've never hit the flight. So my mom grew up in Bond. So I literally rode past that place so many times. I was like, nah, I ain't going in there because somebody gonna know me and be one of my cousins. Next thing you know, we related and we dancing and nah. So I've yet to hit the flight. So Gerald, we got to hit the flight this year. Post game, I'll take off a Monday so we can have a good time. So before we let you get out of here, and thank you for coming on first and foremost. This was probably the first person I formally messaged about coming on the show, and she hit me back up. I will be honest. I know William because I do work with Florida region, and I'd already told him like, dude, you already know what's up, so we'll get whatever. And then Curtis as well, but I was like, I want to make sure I gave everybody a chance. So she did get back to me, and I greatly appreciate it because I got to learn a lot. Some of y'all like me, I'm a little bit on the who am I voting for side of things in this earth, and I like to know who I'm voting for. Okay. And so far, I appreciate it, Ms. Polk. You have definitely shared a great story. I need you to, before I let you go, one more question before I get you this let you stump out of here. What is your guilty pleasure snack? These are my James Wilson questions. My son just opened the door, so that's where the questions came from. He gave me the funny look. Mine has been Oreos the last couple of days.
Anything chocolate. My coworker. I actually like two chocolate stories, and they'll both have to do with work. In my previous job, right before the one I work here, and another job at another agency, we used to have chocolate week, and I think everybody in our group was a chocoholic. Literally all week we would take turns. We bring in whether it was cake or candy or whatever, and even hot chocolate, anything chocolate. We would have a chocolate week, and by the time we got to Thursday, Friday, I was about done. I love anything chocolate. And then one of my current colleagues, he brings in, a bowl, the chocolate candies. And by the time it gets to like 2 or 3 o'clock, I'm heading over to the candy bowl to get my chocolate. I love chocolate, especially milk chocolate. Dark chocolate is good too, but milk chocolate, that's it. You got me with chocolate.
Okay. Yes, like I said, lately it's been Oreos for me, but Haribo gummy bears. That is the one thing everyone in my house knows. I really love you. If I share my gummy bears, or if I just buy you a whole bag for you.
Right.
I don't like to share in general, but I will for the family.
I didn't hear
like
that.
My students learn real quick. I don't share, but like I gave one of my students, my favorite student. He's real quiet. He's awesome. First year, I had scones, and I was like, "We're going to the field trip. Like, you want to try one?" He's like, He was like, like my guy. But I ain't big on sharing. So before we let you go, though, I need you to stump out. Let us know. Talk about yourself. Tell everyone why you are a deserving candidate. Besides being a devastating diva from Delta Sigma Theta, my cousin Delta. I ain't gonna lie. She also graduated, finished there. My cousin Carla. She's AD Suggs ism. But besides being that, working for a wonderful organization, wonderful company, having served graciously as the first vice president, other roles, please let us know why we should all make sure that we put your name on that ballot when we go voting.
All right. Thank you so much, Keith, to you and to everyone listening. First of all, just thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to come on the show and talk about the importance of the FAMU National Alumni Association election that we're having April 1 through May 1 right now. To Keith and those who are yet undecided, I would ask you to visit my website, www.artisha4 FAMUNAA.com and other sites, the YouTube, social media, Facebook and Instagram, Artisha for FAMUNAA. I am the best candidate. I am the baddest candidate for president of the FAMU National Alumni Association, having worked diligently in this organization for over 20 years. I do have the deepest and most extensive experience in the National Alumni Association. I have already worked with chapters and members across this nation. And so if you're looking for stability in a National Alumni Association, you look to one who she has done the work and has made the impacts in every single of the 7 positions that she has held in her chapter, her region, and at the national level. And one candidate who has a clear and bold vision for the National Alumni Association for the next 3, at least the next 3 years, clear and bold vision to elevate our brand in the National Alumni Association, modernize and strengthen NAA operations, protecting FAMU's legacy and future, raising transformational capital, and engaging, connecting, and empowering alumni in such a way that we do so together. We're going to move forward together in our National Alumni Association with Artisha R. Polk as your president, 2025 to 2028. I do ask each and every one of you, I humbly ask for your support and your vote. We will move together forward in making sure that we're elevating the FAMU National Alumni Association. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. Thank you for having me this evening.
There we go. Look, I done learned a few things. Look, I ain't gonna lie. Look, you know, I was like, man, that might look real nice if I set it up like that. But I thank you for coming on. You know, you took out of your day, y'all. This was not a paid nothing. They did the flyer, everything pro bono. Like it was literally, hey, you know, her people, prompt, professional. Everyone was, you know, not speaking ill of anyone, but super engaging. And I definitely wish everyone the best. I myself have not voted. It's probably going to wait till we get our last guest on to vote because I, like you, have my bias. But at the same point, I want to be informed. I don't only want to vote based on my bias because sometimes you vote based on your bias, it don't work out well.
Absolutely true.
For nobody. but you know, but again, thank you so much. Our first vice president, you know, current, who is running for the National Alumni Association. Any parting words before you go, Ms. Polk?
No, just thanking you. I give you kudos, first of all, for having Fangs Up podcast. I love that name. I love the fact that you're doing that, and you are a part of the image building of our university. And so certainly keep doing what you're doing. I'm a fan of, when I found about it, I was like, I really like this. I've subscribed to your channel now. And so I'll make sure I'll keep on watching. And so to everybody out there who's watching, keep watching even beyond. I know some people came on to watch me this evening. I do appreciate it, but I also, urge you to keep watching Keith Hadley. And I love the programs that you have on the show. So thank you for staying positive. Thank you for staying upbeat, being that true rattler. So that's what I have to say.
Hey, I was on campus when Humphrey was up there. I wasn't a student. I was over there at DRS. So, we can look and see y'all up there, looking up to y'all.
Yes.
Well, Miss Polk, I'm gonna let you go. Because I don't want to be showing the other people up here with you up here. But I do want to make sure I thank everyone and show their flyers as well as yours again. I got to
Okay.
make sure, we started off right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Keep
Well,
striking,
look at the
fellas.
strike. Strike from the
Yes.
top. Strike. All righty, Miss Polk. All right, family. Make sure that we thank everyone who has come on. Look, I just want to make sure that I let y'all know it's been a pleasure. Look, I told y'all she was one of the first person I hit up because I wanted to have all the presidential candidates come on. I wanted y'all to make sure y'all got to know, and I think she's done a great job. She shares some amazing things with y'all. Y'all making it tough for a brother to vote. Like, I ain't gonna lie. Certain folks, I got to do what I got to do, though. Jeremiah, he's already won. So, hey, he's been on the show before, a friend of the show, fellow laborer in the Florida region. I really am almost hating that he's getting this corresponding spot because I won't have my partner in crime to mess with at the Florida region. But congratulations, Jeremiah. Also, y'all got to see Mr. Chuck Lewis. Chuck came into the show. We did it live in person. Appreciate it, Carlos. He gave us a space within his dwelling to do the live space. Chuck is running for first vice president. Chuck has been active in the Orlando, Florida region, and now he's vying for your vote nationally. Also, Deborah Patton Jones. Look, y'all love that blouse. Like, she sent the email. For those who reached out to me, I sent the information to y'all. She came over here looking fly. Like, I'm telling y'all, our Northeastern Rattlers got a different kind of swag to them. They be dressed a little more debonair, but she is also running for that first VP. Some tough competition. Now, mentioning the president, Curtis Johnson came on along with Chuck there. He is running for re-election. Curtis has been here and through some tough times, but Ms. Polk was there with him. So, he's running and vying for your re-election. Thank you. And thank you for coming on. And Mr. William Human also running for re-election. At this point, I can call everybody a friend of the show. We've been on a few times. We're gonna have Ms. Polk back on though. Look, I'm just telling y'all, I love her energy. But we will definitely make sure we thank everyone for coming. And last but certainly not least, make sure if you are going to Texas, there ain't no more discounts, but you can go. I'll catch y'all next year. So I'll catch y'all next year on that. Now we have one more person that is going to be coming on. Let me skip over to her slide and make sure I get it right. So, I try to have stuff look somewhat decent, and as old folks who say in church, decently and in order. Ashley Cooper, she's be coming on. She's also running for first vice president. She is going to be our first member of Alpha Kappa Alpha to come on. So, but she is running. She represents the very active JRE Lee chapter. I will tell you, as a member of the Orlando chapter, JRE Lee is one of those chapters you just kind of look to and like, all right, bro, can y'all just y'all got to show out every month. They're always doing something very active. She's gonna come here and talk about some of the things that they're doing and why she's vying for your vote right now. So if you haven't already done so, the NAA elections are open. I'll create a flyer later. Give me some time. Give me this Saturday, because we got a lot going on. And look, I got to catch Freya tonight, so Freya gonna get me right. I can't be going to the field trip looking shabby. But look, y'all, I appreciate y'all coming on. We will continue this again. Ashley's gonna be last one that I know of. Let somebody come out the blue to hit me up. But just thank you everyone for coming on. Thank y'all for listening, and hopefully y'all learned like I did. Like I told y'all, I want to get to know the people behind the flyers. I'm not big on, I don't want to meet your representative. I want to meet you. And so hopefully in this process, you've met the people that you're voting for. You're a more informed voter, and hopefully you're excited and, fill out that ballot because it closes at the end of the month. I ain't even tell y'all what day for next month, the end of this month. Matter of fact, 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, have your ballot in so you can get your vote in. All right, y'all. So for everybody here at HBCU Digital Network, man, look, it's always good times. We're going to see about the Orange and Green game. I'm going to call Brian and see if he got a spot in the car, see what time he's leaving. We may just have to carpool up there. But for everybody, y'all already know what's up, what it's always going to be. Fangs Up.
Yeah, baby, you know what time it is. Now let's get it started. Are you kidding me? Unreal!
While our HBCUs are mostly known for academic rigor, community, they also know how to turn up.
Dorsey, have it!